A strong culture is one that's very deep rooted. It's well entrenched in the organization. People understand it and they get it. It's very hard to change. Any culture is hard to change, but a strong culture is very hard to change. It's developed over a period of years and of decades. You don't just pop in and have a strong culture. There's a very strong indoctrination into the culture, and the displays of approval or disapproval of actions that are taken by members is obvious. And the culture, in a strong culture, as should be, is embedded in the policies and the procedures of the business. For example, if you are going to differentiate on customer service, then your policies and procedures should show that, where people can help the customers. The procedures for taking a return are simpler than they would be if you're a low cost leader. A weak culture, on the other hand, generally lacks values. The culture is not generally shared throughout the organization. It's the managers might think it is, but maybe the people don't. Sometimes members have bonds with a subunit. In other words, I really like the accounting department, but I hate the company. But there's no real emotional commitment to the organization as a whole. Maybe you really bond with the College of Business, but the university is nah, 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 nah. It provides little or no assistance with the strategy that you're trying to follow. Unhealthy culture is one that's highly politicized, where it's kind of an us against them, backstabbing, that kinds of things. Generally, they're change resistant. People don't want to change. It's okay the way it is, even though they don't resist. It's very inwardly focused. What can you do for my department? My department. Those kinds of things. A lot of times they're unethical and they're greed driven. When you look at your culture, you need to determine whether it's an ally or an obstacle. If you remember, we talked about strategy plus structure equals performance. So let's say that we have a differentiation customer service strategy. We're going to provide the greatest customer service. Well, our culture is part of our structure. And if we have a very strong customer based culture, the customer is right, we'll bend over backwards to help the customer, we will take returns easily. Our policies and procedures need to reflect that. People who are promoted because they're doing the right thing by the customers, and stories are told about, oh, do you remember the time the customer came in and wanted, and Fred said, those kinds of things. When those two go together, strategy and structure, when they are aligned correctly, performance will increase. So culture can actually be an ally, or it can be a real problem. So you don't like the culture, it needs to be changed. What do you do? Well, you need to identify the problem. What is it that works and what doesn't work within the culture? Keep the parts that do work and get rid of the parts that don't work. You need to be very specific with your policies, procedures, and your personnel changes about what actions and behaviors are acceptable and how you want people to behave. Talk openly about the problems of the old culture and the advantages of the new culture, because you'll be able to convince people this was the way we used to do it, but isn't it much better if we do it this way? Because follow with the actions that show that you're serious. And here are some of the actions that you can take. Substantive changes, these are changes in real. If you have people that won't follow the new changes, who won't follow the new culture, get rid of them. Promote people who are early adopters of a new culture. When you say we're going to do such and such, and you got people that are going to follow them, and it looks like they're, really buying into this, promote them whenever possible. Try to bring in outsiders who won't have any remnants of the old culture, but who will fit with the new culture to help guide and lead and talk up the new culture. More changes. You can mandate training for those who stay. For example, let's say you decide you're going to become a greener company, and you've never been that and nobody's ever cared about it. Well, maybe we need to have some training about recycling and how to recycle and how to save energy and so on. Push the behaviors through policies and procedures. Push them, implement them, and push them through. Give compensation and incentives for those who are leaders in the chain. The greenest office, the employee who recycles the most cans, or the office that has the lowest change or the biggest change in electric savings, or whatever the case may be, and give us a day off. Or, I mean, these don't have to be thousands and thousands of dollars for the compensation. They're incentives. There are also some symbolic changes that you can make. Always lead by example. Okay? If you want people to be greener, make sure your office lights are off. Make sure your cans are recycled and your paper is recycled. Start new ceremonies to emphasize new cultural values. Maybe you have a Green Day or Customer Service Happiness Day or something that in which you can give out those incentives and those rewards that we talked about just a minute ago. Tell stories that support the new cultural values. As soon as you find something that's working and you can get a story around it, boy, pop right on there and start telling people. Do you remember when? Non-monetary recognition for those who are in support, and intangible days off, which is a soft non-monetary, or things like certificates or trophies or t-shirts, whatever it is that would help get your culture across. And culture is very, very important, but change is difficult. In a strong culture, it may have taken decades. It may take years to change a culture. Don't be in a hurry and worry that things won't change, because they won't change immediately. And that is the end of chapter 11.